and welcome to the Fempreneur podcast.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to get to know you today. So tell us, where are you joining us from today? Where in the world?
Yeah, we are in Austin, Texas. That's where we're headquartered, where we make our products and everything.
Right on. So tell us about your business. Where did you come up with the idea for all of the amazing products you create today? Like, what's the story behind it?
Yeah, so I wish I could claim like being the idea person behind the tech, but it was actually created in Italy by one of our co-founders. I'm a co-founder with two others, and we have a great founder in Italy that had been using this technology that they found out of a university in Italy, and kind of bought the rights to the technology and the simple way of explaining it is it's olive oil, which is not surprising with Italy, right? You start with like this very high grade, medical grade olive oil, and we oxygenate it. And that oxygenation process makes peroxide or natural peroxide. And then it turns that olive oil into an ointment. And so that, which is something we call our substrate, we put in all our different products. So they were using it in an ointment for first aid and really prescriptive serious wound care like diabetic ulcers and bed sores and things like that through medical channels. So hospitals, doctors were using this tech there. And the idea behind the company was to bring that technology over to the US for the consumer market. And so we started that back in 2017, really in first aid to begin with. And then we got into the feminine health space when we learned that it worked for feminine yeast infections. And so that was
Wow.
our first FemaClear product.
So I'm curious. I mean, obviously, I'm a woman and I've used some of these products because, these things happen.
They
So
all
what's
happen.
the difference
Yep.
between, say, a yeast infection cream that all women have heard of and yours? Like, what's the key difference there?
The key difference is ours is natural
Okay.
and ours is more effective, believe it or not. So it's like most people think a drug or, chemical, synthetic chemicals active, and that's just not true. Because of the nature of the way our products are made, they only have natural ingredients in them, but they are proven to be more effective. We've done clinical studies and lab studies, and that's really kind of the big differentiator for us is that we have natural ingredients, but we also have a lot of testing to prove the effectiveness of our products. And so, when natural is nice for like beauty products and kind of food products and things like that, people want to have the natural better for you. But when it comes to an infection or something's wrong, especially down there, you want to know that it works. So even though we have natural ingredients, we want to prove that it works, and that's kind of the main thing we bring, are those two sides of the coin that consumers really care about.
Tell us more about yourself. How did you come into this entrepreneur world of just, marketing and getting the word out there about products and like what's your entrepreneur journey looked like?
It's a long one. I've been doing this a while. This is actually my fourth company. So, really, right out of business school, I started my first company and it was in the DNA space. So, I've always been kind of into the kind of science, health area and, kind of direct to consumers. So, that first company was a paternity testing laboratory. So, we helped people figure out who the father of a child was by doing, kind of what was then the latest technology in DNA. It's now pretty standard. And so like I've been doing this, kind of since my 20s, and I can't imagine being anything other than an entrepreneur. I probably would be really bad in a big company. But I love the idea of trying to figure out a new industry or find my way introducing something really disruptively in an industry, and that's all along. So that was my first company. It was a next company really geared, and then the third company, the consumer. That was one I did not. I was not a founder, but I was an investor and then the CEO, and to recognize guys ago, and this again back in 2017, and so from, and all does seem that's such a critical. And so I love how you do that and with your platform.
Yeah, thank you. And so I guess to tie into the marketing side of things, because that is really what I'm always the most curious about when having a conversation with a woman such as yourself. What are some of those big marketing aha moments that you've had in your journey of, building and growing and marketing these businesses? What are some of the things, maybe the top three, like aha moments or takeaways you've kind of run with?
Evolved since I've been doing it a long time. Early days, so things were really do this in a much different way, either way, to be honest. Back today, I feel like today, you know, so crowded that you have to different. What was back in when I was DNA was be shy aspect doing testing to kind of the general public. Paternity testing was that widespread and needed. Not something that was unsurprising to people that there was a rate on paternity in the public. They know who their father is. If you can surprise people and their attention with something, I think that's always effective in marketing. Maybe another aha moment.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say one of my favorite books. It's kind of an oldie but a goodie. Is one of Seth Godin's, The Purple Cow, and that stuck with me a long time. And that is, make a product that's remarkable enough for people to talk about it, so that you don't have to do as much heavy lifting as the marketer. You've made a product that's so distinctively different that people are going to talk about it anyway. And so, I've tried to follow that, and I think we've been pretty successful at it. And always continuing in this company, especially with Femiclear, we're continuously innovating and trying to listen to our consumers. What are they telling us? What do they like? What do they don't like? How can we improve the actual consumer experience? And so we're coming up with new formulations or new aspects of the consumer experience that will make it better for them and do what the consumer wants.
I love that. You said a couple of things there: how to make a product that's distinctively different and how to make a product that people will talk about. So when you were creating, I guess maybe any one of these businesses or part of creating any one of these businesses, how were you coming up with ways to make your product more exciting and interesting for people so they would talk about it? Do you have any tips or tricks around that?
Yeah, I mean, again, you want to solve a problem that people recognize as a problem. Like, BV is a great example. Bacterial vaginosis is a condition that we address with our products, and it is not a condition that's well addressed by any other product out there, including the prescription. The prescription that's typically used for this only solves about 60 to 70% of cases.
Wow.
People get them over and over again. So people have recurring PV infections. They're really uncomfortable. People get embarrassed by them. They feel dirty and yucky when they have them. I mean, it's no fun. Mm-hmm. So, and there's really not a good over-the-counter solution. So we were trying to offer something that was both more effective and over-the-counter. And so in our clinical study, over 90% reported a full elimination of all symptoms in just a couple of days. Whereas the prescription takes a full week. And like I said, it only cures like 60 to 70% of them. So that's one of the ways. Is like, look for, places, experiences that aren't being solved well with what's out there.
Mhm.
At least for me, that's a better way to go. Maybe because I'm not a great marketer, I don't know. Because trying to compete in a sea of sameness is not. I'd rather have the product be really different than be the brilliant marketer that can just you know have the best packaging or but it's really the same stuff inside. So
Mhm.
that's my angle. I admire the people that can do that kind of marketing because I think it's brilliant and that's definitely a good business strategy for a lot of companies.
Mhm.
But for me, it's really like try to solve that problem that's not being solved.
Yeah. And I mean, marketing a product isn't something that I have really any experience with. I am the product. My knowledge is the product. I help femipreneurs with their marketing. That's kind of my product, I guess you could say. So this whole world of, almost stumbling upon this wonderful product and sort of like, oh, well, it's really, really good for this. It might even be better for this than everything else we created it for. And then turning it into, finding a name and designing the packaging and setting everything up. And you said that all began in 2017 with Femiclear?
Yeah, well, with Femiclear, it was 2019.
Okay.
So yeah, the first product and brand we launched was Curoxin. We still have that, and
Okay.
that's we have products for first aid and mouth sore treatments and things like cold sore and things like that. But Femiclear is really where we're putting more of our focus
Hmm.
to build out a brand for vaginal health, female health
Yeah.
that can be it's sort of the answer for all the things that might go wrong down there that nobody
Yeah.
wants to happen, but you want to have a good solution when they do. Yeast infection, BV, genital herpes, UTIs. These are all things that are very, very common conditions that also happen to recur, or in the case of herpes, it's chronic.
Yeah.
And so that's really what our niche is.
Right. And you must have had to really just do a ton of learning and a ton of research and for you yourself to understand the problems out there and the ways that they can be solved, and I guess just learn how to explain it to someone like me who doesn't have the scientific knowledge. So it has to have been a really steep learning curve for you too.
For sure. And I mean, I kind of think in some ways not being a medical professional is helpful because sometimes, you can get lost in translation when you're trying to say something in a medical or technical way. I don't speak
Mhm.
that language. I mean, we do like to talk about our clinicals and our lab testing that we've done, but we try to explain it in a way that, is really simple and easy to understand.
So, what does the last few months or maybe 6 months look like for you in the day to day, career of Carolyn? What kind of things have you been up to? Like, take us behind the scenes into building the business and just the kind of stuff you're up to. Like, I suspect you've been on some podcasts and you're spreading the word through other podcasts. What other kind of things have you been doing?
Yeah, I mean, most of our promotion has been on the digital side, and so paid search, paid social. These are staples in our kind of marketing strategy. Um, Influencers have been really helpful. We've tried a lot of different things. You have to test and learn and figure out what doesn't work or what's not worth the money. But we found that certain influencers, typically more the kind of micro influencers, the people that can talk about your products and they really resonate, can be really valuable. And we were able to grow our TikTok channel to almost 400,000 followers, really with education. And so what we found, we had a great person on staff that helped us create that channel, and she was really wonderful and kind of understands kind of the way a lot of women think, but also is very analytical. And so she would kind of look at what was resonating, and people want education. They want to understand.
Mhm.
Even stuff that we don't have a product for, we would still bring anything that was in sort of the vaginal health realm. We would talk about it, and so it might be about your period or can tell me about what should or shouldn't happen during sex or things like this that maybe a lot of the typical TikTok consumer was really anxious to learn because a lot of people don't talk about that. And so our sort of education, what you should have learned in school kind of thing, has really worked well for us.
So have you always been like this comfortable and confident with talking about all these feminine health things, or has this been a learning curve for you too to just kind of speak real naturally and comfortably about all this stuff?
Yeah, no, I mean, I probably have always been pretty comfortable talking about the things, but not this level. And so I've loved to lean into it. In fact, we made one of our core values at the company lean into the uncomfortable,
Ooh,
because it is so critical that people who work for the company can be comfortable talking about vaginas and talking about herpes and all this stuff that needs to get talked about, because so many people, not just women, with herpes or even with BV, they live in shame. They live with these stigmas. And it's just, I mean, it's just kind of a travesty. And we've done a fair amount of research on the psyche of women with these conditions. And it's pretty grim, and it shouldn't be, right? It's so common. 1 in 5 women has genital herpes. And most of them
yeah,
don't know that. Most of them think probably they're 1 in a million or something. They think it's a really rare thing, and it's not. And so,
yeah.
sometimes just knowing you not only you're not alone, you're in lots of company, is a thing that just is like a kind of a warm hug of making people feel better about it. And then if you can just like kind of learn to manage your outbreaks better, or learn to manage your recurring infections in the case of BV or yeast or UTI, if you
Mhm.
figure out how to do those so that you can either prevent them from happening or really reduce the frequency of the recurrence, it just makes your lifestyle so much better. And you don't have to go through those days of, kind of suffering through an infection or an outbreak.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so one question that I like to ask all of my podcast guests is, what would you tell your 10-year younger self?
Um, Gosh, that's a good one. I think it's use your judgment and learn from others, which learn from others, and have been a member of an entrepreneur group for a long, long time. So I think that's true. 10 years ago, I was more enamored of the idea of raising money and having investors and all that kind of stuff. And I still think that that's an important step in growing a company of scale. But the longer you can wait to do that and bootstrap as long as you can do, because you want to get to a scale where, when investment money comes in, it doesn't, consume too much of your time, equity, and control. So that's probably what I would say is I think people can get caught up in the idea of financing, getting investors, all that sort of stuff. It can be very helpful, and it also can be very challenging.
Okay, now I'm curious about getting products that are, I guess, considered medical or health products across the borders, right? Like I'm in Canada. I've heard it's a little trickier to get products approved to be on the shelf in Canada. Food products, health products, all of that. Would you agree with that,
Fully.
or did you?
We're desperate to get into Canada. We're not there,
Mhm.
because especially for healthcare products, um, the Canadian Health Ministry, I guess, it has a pretty challenging bar to get health products approved there. Now, some of our products are actually kind of labeled as cosmetic or supplements, and so we're actually investigating that now to see if those type of products are have an easier time getting into Canada. So we definitely want to be north of our border and in your fine country, which I go to every summer. By the way, my
Oh,
mom
really?
has a place up there in Quebec, and we love it.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, I feel a kindred spirit toward all Canadians.
Yes. Okay, so how many products are there, like under the FemiClear
Under
name?
Femiclear, I think we're at 17, 18. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about maybe the top 5 or 10, like what are they? Like they're not all creams and gels. Some of them are ingestible products,
Yep.
like supplements, you were saying?
Yep, yep. So what we've tried to do, so our kind of what we've considered our core products are these treatment products. So our leading one is for bacterial vaginosis, because I think that's the condition that's least well handled by other products. Um, Genital herpes and yeast infection. So those are our kind of our top three products. UTI is more of a brand new suite of products we just launched in the last couple of months. So our
Mhm.
top three are those. And what we try to do is kind of look at each of those consumers and what else do they need? How can they help prevent these things from happening? So for our herpes consumer, we know that lysine is incredibly important in helping prevent outbreaks from happening. So we created a wash, a feminine wash with lysine in it, and we also have a drink mix supplement with a clinical dose of lysine in it. And so that's, what we've tried to do is we haven't purposefully gone out and said, oh, let's make a supplement. We're trying to like address the full, consumer need and the like life cycle. So it's more of a regimen that will help reduce the need for treatments, right? So that's the idea, is like lean in on more prevention and maintenance and less need for the treatment. So we've done the same for our yeast infection consumer by having a probiotic, which works for both like helping prevent BV and yeast infections from happening. And then we also have a soothing wash for itching and things like that.
Yeah. And then I was just in Mexico and I'm heading back at the end of the month actually for our Fempreneurs retreat.
Oh,
But the drugstores there are always carrying all these things that Canadians can't get their hands on. They go there and they buy them. And I never go, I don't take anything. I'm kind of like maybe a bit granola that way. Not by choice, I don't take anything. So would I find your products on the shelf in Mexico or is
no,
that
we are just in the US at this point. And we've
okay?
just kind of decided to, there's a lot of opportunities still in the US. I have had my foray into international, kind of business development, particularly at that first company. Had a office in Japan and one in Europe and one even in Brazil, and those opportunities can be really great. They also take a lot of time. And so another thing you might tell yourself 10 years ago is make sure you're focused on the most impactful thing that you can. Keep your top 5 priority list as front and center as you can, and make sure that everything you're doing there is likely to have the biggest impact. Because we can get, all entrepreneurs can get really distracted by the shiny thing, and that's always, it's always something new and fun. Might not be something that's going to deliver a lot, or might not have a high chance of success. It's helpful to be really disciplined about evaluating every new opportunity that comes up, and deciding, do I really want to invest my time in that?
Okay. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I definitely followed that rule when I started with my YYC, Calgary, Alberta Fempreneurs community and my marketing school. And but there were periods of a few months at a time when I got a little distracted and felt like I should be going more global
Yeah.
and I rebranded ish a little bit a couple times and ended up coming back to the original YYC Fempreneurs. The podcast obviously is my biggest kind of global thing that I have. But it's one of those things where most of my listeners are probably still in the Calgary area. It's expanding more into the US every month, but I think it's great advice, like you said, to focus on your immediate area, and then you can slowly expand as opportunities present themselves, but not being distracted, or I think you said chasing shiny
Yeah.
objects that will take you away from where you can have the most impact right now.
Right. Right. I mean, I don't know if digitally, like with podcasts, that it, it's just as easy to have a conversation with somebody who's in Singapore or Austin, as it is to have someone in Canada. So it may not
Right.
apply in the same way as like having to get products to other countries or whatever. But yeah, it's just something that, because a lot of things can feel very exciting and tempting. Um, and so, just having the thought and the discipline to say, is that going to give me what I want it to give me?
Yeah, I think it's people try to cast too wide of a net too soon when they're having some success in their area, and so I think it's good a good reminder for a lot of fempreneurs to like even things like for me, very similar to what you're doing right now. Like you're a busy woman, and here you are having a conversation with me, and obviously, you know, our podcast episode knows how many hundreds or thousands of women will hear it, but um, where was I going with that? I think the point is that the personal touch stuff that maybe doesn't seem very scalable when you're first doing it. Like I always tell my fempreneurs who are holding events, whether it's on Zoom or in person, when they see that someone's signed up, whether it's free or paid event, to reach out to that person, add them as a friend on Facebook,
Yeah.
like let them know that you see them and you want to get to know them. And, you know, I'm sure like Tim Ferriss isn't doing that anymore, but there was probably a time when he did things like that,
Yeah.
right? And so in the beginning, we do things a little differently that and maybe it's not scalable, but we do those things so that later, um, when we have casted a wider net and our products are in Japan and Canada and everywhere else, we still have that foundation of being known for, you know, humans who care, who reach out, who are reachable. And I think that that's something that we all need to remember, that we're not just going to automate everything and chat GPT and, you know, AI. We're going to actually be humans making
Yes.
connections, having conversations like ours today.
Totally agree. And you know, to kind of put an exclamation point on what you just said, I mean, the one thing I do believe is that, you know, we're you know, you can define your industry. I mean, you're a podcaster, you're in the feminine entrepreneur space. That's a specific space. And like for us, feminine health, you know, or even like intimate health, that's a specific space. And so getting to know other people in the industry is actually something fairly new. I've been doing it just for a few years, that I think is completely worth the time and the investment. And so, you know, and so that, like to your point of having that personal connection, really getting to know other people in the space can be really beneficial. And especially being in the feminine, in a feminine, you know, kind of slanted industry, I think most women are really supportive of each other and try to help each other. And so the more that we can keep doing that, I think. And so there's some women's health conferences that I've tried to attend and participate in, and I think that's well worth the time, even if it doesn't necessarily show up as what is the impact yet. It's being in the right, you know, right rooms with right people and getting to know them and being as helpful as you can, and you never know when that might come back and help you too.
Yes, absolutely. So you said your products are currently being made in Italy, or that was where they originally were made?
Originally, they were made there. We moved all manufacturing here in 2019, and we're making all of our products here by 2020.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
I know.
fantastic.
No, it's a big deal because we FDA registered drug facility, and so and we're kind of subject to the same rules as a Pfizer or, you know, something like that. So it's been a big, you know, kind of infrastructure to develop, a quality
Hmm.
system to develop, and you know, I'm really proud of what the team has been able to put together, and you know, and that's it's an unusual sort of asset or approach for a company our size to have your own manufacturing, but it gives us a lot of you know, advantages that I think other companies don't have. When you're making a product and you have to work with a co-manufacturer, while you don't have to hassle with it, you are, you know, you're a customer of theirs. And so if you're not a big customer of theirs, you may not have the same sort of leverage with them as, you know, as if you can do it yourself. And so, you know, we're able to do it ourselves, and that's nice.
That's great. How many people does the Femiclear brand or company employ
We just have
worldwide?
25 people, so we're
Okay.
still a small company. Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
great. That's awesome. So you all know each other's
oh
names.
yeah,
There's no kind of like, yeah, that feeling of being lost in the shuffle. That's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
That's really cool. Well, I wish you all the best of luck in getting on the shelves globally, gradually, of course. For all of our lucky listeners who are in the US, where do they find your products? How do they get
Yeah,
a hold of
yeah, we're in Walgreens, Walmart, Amazon, Rite Aid, you know, on, of course, femiclear.com as well.
you? Right.
So yeah, I mean, mostly drug and mass. So that's what they
Awesome.
can do.
Well, congrats on all of your hard work, and on just, yeah, doing the thing that you feel like you know, you were called to do, and creating a product that didn't really exist in its awesome form that you've created it into with your team. And thanks for taking the time to be here today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our Fempreneur listeners about business, about feminine health, anything you have to
Oh
share?
gosh, I mean, I think just talk about it more. Just don't be afraid or ashamed or embarrassed. The more we talk about things, the better they get. And so I think discourse like this and you having a platform like this is so beneficial to all of us. So thank you for what you're doing, and not just for entrepreneurs, but for whatever it is that the person's coming on to talk about. It's just sharing information and getting the word out. So appreciate the opportunity a lot.
Definitely. You're welcome. And thank you so much, Carolyn. All right, let's hop off. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can head over to yycfempreneurs.com.